sure that, education, job training, protecting pensions, safe workplaces, making sure not only in the United States but workers around the world can actually have fair wages, that you can actually breathe the air in places around the world. Everybody says, go to China. I've been to China. You can breathe the air and look across the street maybe 2 days a year. We don't want to race down to that. We want to lift the people up. And so that, I believe, for us, is the challenge. For you, is the challenge as we look at how we have an economy, in a global economy, that keeps a middle class, because we won't have an economy unless we have a middle class, unless people have money in their pocket. That is our challenge, to do that in a way that lifts up others around the world, instead of pitting us against people who can and will work for $1.50 an hour or less. So is the labor movement needed today? You bet. Are there some new questions? Of course. But the fundamentals are still the same. And so when we look at things like raising the minimum wage to a livable wage, one of the things I'm so proud of is the fact that even though people who are in the UAW or any other part of the labor movement are getting above the minimum wage, it's the labor movement who fights for the minimum wage.
That's right.
It's the labor movement who understands. And simple things, important things, like on the other end, protecting not only pensions, which right now, as you know, it's going to be a big fight going into this next year, this whole continuing question, 401k versus defined benefit plans, and how we're going to make sure that folks have pensions. But Social Security and Medicare are also continue to be on the line. Social Security and Medicare are great American success stories. And Republicans think we ought to privatize both, because they believe unless somebody's making a profit, whatever it is has no value. And so they want to take Social Security and give it to Wall Street. Oh, that's great. And Medicare, privatize it, give everybody a voucher, say you're on your own, go see if you can find insurance. So there are big, big fights. 21st century safety standards. And as I mentioned, fair trade laws. We're in a global economy. We want the jobs that come from exporting. I do. I'm sure you do. But we've got to have laws in place where the jobs are here and then we export. That we're making things here and growing things here, which is how you have an economy, and then you export. So there is a lot at stake in this election. A lot at stake. And I have to say, for the women in the room and for all of the men in the room who care about the women in their lives, there's some very basic fights going on right now that I never thought we'd have to fight, that my mom fought, my grandma fought, and I never thought we would have to be here talking about equal pay for equal work in 2014, but we are. Gary Peters, who, by the way, is going to be a great U.S. Senator as my partner. We got to make sure Gary Peters is elected to the United States Senate. But he's actually running against somebody, and I'm sure you have heard this, who says women don't care about pay or pay increases, we just want flexibility.
Oh, crap.
Well, what I've said is that flexibility doesn't put gas in my car. Right. It doesn't pay for my groceries. It doesn't pay for my mortgage. That's a bunch of bull. But we're having to fight that out. There has been legislation down the street in the state capitol since 2011 to toughen up enforcement of equal pay laws, because right now women are getting 75 cents for every dollar the man makes. And they haven't even been willing to do a hearing on it, the governor or the state legislature. This is a big deal. Decisions about women's health care. We have an attorney general in this state who led the group of right-wing Republican attorney generals around the country, went to Washington, actually spoke before the Supreme Court in favor of Hobby Lobby, a company that wants, and in fact now, because of the Supreme Court, can make decisions for women about what birth control they're on. And Terry Lynn Land thinks that's a great idea. Bill Schuette thinks that's a great idea. People in Lansing right now, the Republicans, think that's a great idea. And my message to them is, it's not your boss's business what decisions you make on health care. I never thought we would be talking about this in 2014. You know, this is like an Ozzie and Harriet rerun from 1950. Which, by the way, in 1950, the birth control was criminalized at the time. So there's a lot at stake. So I'm not on the ballot this year, but I am on the road. And I'm on the road all over the state. Because our future is on the ballot. The quality of your workplace, your choices, our economy, whether we will have a middle class, is on the ballot. The ability for women to make their own decisions and to be paid equally so their families can have the resources that they need is on the ballot. Our ability to protect our Great Lakes and our open spaces and to understand in a global economy how we do this thing right to keep the jobs here is on the ballot. That's what's on the ballot this year. So, you know, there's only, a couple weeks, less than a couple weeks to go on all of this. And I know you're here because you care and you're leaders and you're going to be future leaders. And in this next couple of weeks, we need all hands on deck with this election. Reaching out to friends, neighbors, reaching out to folks that say, well, it doesn't really matter anyway. Doesn't matter anyway. And talk to them about what happened in 2010 when we didn't show up in Michigan like we should have showed up and voted. We got right to work because we didn't show up like we did in 2008 and 2012. We got a whole bunch of things that are outside the mainstream. We got folks in there that care about the wealthy and the well-connected and not everybody else, because as a group in Michigan, the rest of us didn't show up. So we got to show up in 2014. Anybody who can vote absentee has got to do that. If you need to vote absentee, you can still sign up. We've got this new, very cool stuff going on through the Michigan Democratic Party where you can get the application on your iPhone, your iPad. Go to the party. There's a way to tap into the clerk to get the application. We need to make sure everybody who can and needs to vote absentee shows up. If you aren't going to be in town, you can actually go into the clerk and vote in person absentee if you qualify to vote absentee. And then on November 4th, first of all, we got to pray to Mother Nature. It's a bright, sunny day. But then we got to show up. Whether it's rain, sleet, snow, we in Michigan, 50-50 chance on this, But no matter what, we got to show up. And the phone calls that need to be made, the door knocking that needs to be made, and nobody knows better than UAW and all of our friends in labor who have been the backbone, the foundation of making sure that there is voter turnout. This is the moment to do that. This really is the moment to do that in order to be able to make sure that we can go forward and you can go back to work and you can know that it's going to be okay because the folks in Lansing or your U.S. senator is not going to be trying to undermine you and your family and your life. And so that's what is at stake. The final thing I would say is that we know about the big money, right? We know about the Koch brothers. We know about the big money. Koch brothers, I think it's for them a business decision. These guys make hundreds of $millions a year. They take 10%, put it into buying a Senate and a Congress and governorships that work for them, look like them. I think they consider that a pretty good business decision. Right. In our country, though, here's what makes the difference. Here's why everybody else wants to be like us and why we need to make sure we show up. It doesn't matter how much money you got in your pocket on election day. you get one vote. These guys with all that money, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You get one vote. Doesn't matter. $1 million or a nickel. I'd rather have $1 million. I'd be a good millionaire. But it doesn't matter. $1 million or a nickel or nothing. That's the day, November 4th, where all of it equals out. All of it equals out. That is the power that we have. Let's go use it. And let's go take back Nancy.